Hi, my name is Jeremy Marshall. I'd like to tell you my story, which is about cancer and about hope in the face of death. I've written a book called Beyond the Big C, which I'm sure anyone from the church will be very happy to give you a copy of. And I've got ready about five-minute talks just to talk about what it's like to have cancer and to share with you some things, and specifically a person who I found amazingly helpful, has brought me hope in the face of death. So in this first talk, I'd just like to tell you really a little bit about who I am. And this talk is designed for people who may have Christian belief, may have none, people who may have cancer, or may indeed be suffering from any kind of sickness or illness or trouble. So up until about 8 years ago, I had a very normal life. I'm married to Jeanette. We live in Kent. We've got 3 adult children. Everything was basically fine. And then one day, 8 years ago, I found a tiny lump on my ribs, like a small pea. And maybe some of you have been through this. I went to the GP and they said, it's just a fatty lump, nothing really to worry about, but we'll get it checked out anyway. And eventually, because it wasn't a fatty lump, I ended up at the Royal Marsden, which only does one thing, cancer. And they told me, look, you've got this rare type of cancer. It's a type of sarcoma. Sarcoma is cancer of the muscle tissue, and we can treat it. So for about 6 months, I went through treatment. I had radiotherapy and various operations. And then for about 2 years, everything went back to normal and my life continued. I went back to work. And then about 5 years ago, I was at a friend's house and I went to adjust my collar and I found a massive lump on my collarbone, more like a golf ball than a pea. And immediately I knew what it was. I knew the cancer had come back. I went back to the hospital, they ran various checks. And then a day that sticks in my mind, Friday, the 13th of June, appropriately enough, I was waiting in the waiting room. And they said, please come through. The nurse said, please come through. And I walked down a short corridor with her and she said, I'm really, really sorry. And that was the only notice I had, because when I got into the room, there were lots of people there. And they told me, look, we don't know how we missed this. Actually, a few years later, they discovered it was a completely different type of cancer. So I don't blame them at all. But anyway, you've got tumors everywhere. And there's not really a great deal we can do, unlike the first time. So, of course, the question you ask is, well, how long do you think I've got? And they said, well, never exactly tell, about 18 months. So at that, I burst into tears. Please don't think I'm some kind of, expert on cancer. I don't think anybody is. I'm certainly not an amazing holy Christian. I'm not a religious person either by nature. I'm a banker, right? You don't get much less religious than that. We're all about money. And it's been hard over the last 5 years. I've been through 30 chemotherapy treatments. That's quite a lot, right? Sadly, hospitals don't give you frequent flyer points. I've had about a dozen operations. I also lost the sight one after the other in both eyes. So I was blind for a while. I've been in hospital with heart issues. I was just in hospital a couple of weeks ago, actually. So if you read about the NHS, being in crisis, I'm the person responsible. But seriously, what's having cancer like? Well, I think the predominant emotion is one of fear. Yeah, fear. Certainly whenever I go to get my scan results, and I've had a lot of scans, I'm very nervous in the waiting room because I think, well, what's the doctor going to say? That they spread, that they've shrunk, who knows? And the thing that's kept me going has been the presence of God. The presence of God. That's something I want to share with you. Now, again, please don't think I'm some kind of religious person. I'm not. And it's not that I've had some kind of strange mystical experience. No. But when I've gone through treatment and I've been in hospital on my own during lockdown, which was quite hard with heart problems, you can have no visitors. I wanted to even go and stand in the corridor for 10 minutes, but the nurse said, no, you have to stay in the room. That's pretty hard. And I remembered then the promises of God. Look, I'm with you always, even to the very end of the age, said Jesus. In fact, those were his last words to his friends. And perhaps the most famous verse in the Bible is the 23rd Psalm, the Lord's my shepherd. And in that Psalm, we read this, Yes, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. So that's been my experience over the last few years. And in a way, I would say very gently and in a friendly way, if you're watching, welcome to my world, right? Because in the last 5 years, every time someone coughed or sneezed, I felt afraid because I had no immune system and was nervous about catching something. And now everybody feels like that. And for the last 5 or so years, I feel I've been living with the sword of Damocles over my head. Life is very uncertain. Every day, you wake up and you think, well, what's going to happen? So that makes you afraid. And again, friend, that's been all our experience, hasn't it, to some extent in lockdown, that suddenly with this daily death toll, death intrudes. So what I'd like to share, and I hope you'll join me on the other 4 short talks, is what I found to be the answer to fear, what I found to be the answer to death. And in very short summary, he's a person, Jesus Christ, who I believe has the answer to death. In fact, he offers us eternal life. I'd like to tell you about my experience. I'd like to tell you about some Bible passages that I found really helpful. I hope they'll be helpful for you. Again, this is not aimed at Christians or aimed at religious people. I'm talking to you, especially if you don't particularly have any religious beliefs at all, or you think, well, maybe there's something in the Christian faith. I'm not sure. I'm just looking in further. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you join me again.